Hello. Guess what, guys? It is 10:40 and our break is over. So I'm going to ask everyone to make their way back to their chairs and stop talking. That's right, stop talking. Before I introduce our next presenters, are you missing your BeaverCon bag? We have a lost BeaverCon bag, so you can come up and claim it if it is yours. Okay. Well, I am happy to present and introduce Tiffany Boyd, Executive Director of Classrooms for Climate Action, along with several of her high school students. Their session is entitled Youth Voices, Beavers as a Climate Solution and Local Climate Action, Part 1. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel, so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Boyd, and I'm with Classrooms for Climate Action. Our role is to support teachers and students to have a voice in local climate mitigation, adaptation, and climate resilience. So through our work, I've been fortunate enough to meet these 4 wonderful high school students who are here today to tell you what their work that they're working on in terms of climate literacy, decarbonization of buildings, tree planting, lots of nature-based climate solutions. And nothing you're going to hear in this panel has anything to do with beavers. But our hope is that you will go back to your communities and you will get youth involved in your work, in your climate adaptation work, in your climate resilience work. So here we are, and we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, we have Ashna Shah here and Penelope Letter. Arthur couldn't make it today, he's sick. Tessa Nims is here, and Mateo, say it again, last name? Bovino, thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ashna. She's going to get started talking about policy efforts on climate.
Thank you, Tiff. My name is Ashna, and I'm a senior at Monarch High School in the Boulder Valley School District, and I'm here today to talk about some climate policy efforts that I've worked on. As Tiff said, this doesn't directly pertain to beavers, but I do believe that the preservation of our environment is integral to the preservation of its species, which includes our beavers. So I'm a member of something called the Colorado Youth Advisory Council, which is a state legislated group in which youth members develop policy proposals that they then present to the legislature for formal introduction. And last year I served on the environmental committee, and we developed three policy proposals. Mine focused on youth involvement in environmental justice, and that one is going to be formally introduced into the legislature. It entails the addition of 2 youth members to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's Environmental Justice Advisory Board so that youth can be more involved in making the decisions that will affect their futures. We've also created a proposal on reducing food waste in school cafeterias, which will also be officially recommended to the legislature. And our proposal on solar in schools, we will continue to work on that with outside organizations in order to formally introduce that one as well. This year we're focusing on bills that are targeted towards pollution reduction. So that includes air pollution, water pollution, and plastic pollution. We're currently looking at ways to do that. Next slide. Another important legislative update from the past legislative session was that Colorado passed a bill called the Seal of Climate Literacy Bill. And this bill provides high schoolers with a seal. It's adjacent to the seal of biliteracy, and it just certifies that they are prepared, they are ready to tackle the climate problems of our world. This was passed in the legislature last year. We were the first state in the nation to pass something like this, and it will be implemented in the Boulder Valley School District, starting with current seniors such as myself. Next slide. I've also worked with an organization called the Sunrise Movement. Boulder Valley School District has our own chapter. We have our own Sunrise Hub. And last year, we worked on something called the Green New Deal for Schools. And BVSD became the first school district in the nation to pass a Green New Deal for Schools resolution. And this included commitments to climate disaster plans, integrated climate education, pathways to green jobs, and sustainable infrastructure in schools. Since then, a similar resolution has been passed in school districts across the country. Next slide. And currently, our Sunrise Hub is working on expanding this out to the rest of Colorado after our win in our district. And to do this, we're collaborating with legislators and policymakers to pass attributes of the Green New Deal policies as legislation. So this would include sustainable infrastructure in schools, for example, funding electric school buses, or it would include pathways to green jobs, so funding the Colorado Climate Corps. And we're lobbying the CDP, or the Colorado Department of Education, to develop climate curriculum, and we're doing so much more in order to make Colorado a leader in environmental environmental policy and in order to take on the problems of the future. We're also involving ourselves in nationwide political action, and that includes advocating for this in other parts of the USA. Next slide. And yeah, that is all of my work on policy solutions. I hope that that will give you some input on how youth can be very involved in climate policy, and youth have great ideas, and these policies will go towards saving all of our Earth and all of its species. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Penelope Letter, and I'm here to talk about nature-based climate solutions. As you can see, there's a fancy definition up there on the board, but nature-based climate solutions in simplicity is using natural solutions to try and fight climate change rather than using human technology. Next slide. Over the past year, Peak to Peak, Fairview, Monarch, and other climate-active organizations have planted hundreds of trees in Colorado in order to try and fight urban heat islands. And this organization, the Community Forestry Corps, was established in order to help people grow these trees faster so they don't die within their first few months of life. So the Community Forestry Corps is built of youth who are new to the workforce, who go and they water the trees and they learn different job skills that will help them in the future and also get to help grow for their future. Next slide. Urban heat islands, which we planted these trees to purposely prevent, are where there's a lot of infrastructure and human activity in a certain area, which causes the heat to kind of tunnel over that area and grow in temperature. This especially happens when there's not enough arbory or trees planted in that area. So in order to prevent that, next slide, we wanted to plant as many trees as possible. In particular, in Peak to Peak, where I go to school, we realized that schools are a hub for urban heat islands. So we wanted to create sort of a nature haven for all of our students by planting sort of a mini forest in our own backyard. Next slide. We used the Peak to Peak innovation and design thinking process, where first we ideated exactly where the trees were going to go, what areas we were going to use. We ended up using a empty lot next to one of our parking lots where around 18 trees had just been removed for iron deficiency. So then we had to move on to site analysis. Where do we plant these trees? What kind of trees are we going to plant? How do we use soil to grow them as quickly as possible and as healthily as possible? And then our final step is action, or as we've nicknamed it here, soil lasagna, where in order to help the kind of poor Colorado soil fertilize best for the trees, we created this soil lasagna, which is essentially just cardboard layered on compost, layered on cardboard, and then so on, which actually creates a really rich soil for the trees to thrive in. So that is what we've done to help create a nature haven for our school and better help the health of our students.
Thanks, Penelope. I'll go ahead and do Arthur's part because he wasn't able to be with us today. So another one of the climate resilient efforts that students are taking on in the Boulder Valley schools are decarbonizing buildings. So currently the Boulder Valley School District's timeline for decarbonizing buildings aligns with Excel Energies, which is 2050, and there are groups of students that are hoping to speed that timeline up. Like any school district, we have a lot of aging infrastructure. As a lot of you know, if you're involved in this work at all, retrofitting buildings with heat pumps and update insulation and quality windows and doors is very expensive. And these are things that school districts don't have the budget to do in a really quick timeline. So there have been some good things that have happened with the Inflation Reduction Act. You know, a lot of schools are starting to receive more money for decarbonization, but there's a group of students that are very concerned that this needs to happen more quickly, and they're working with community partners for public-private funding to try and get more funding for decarbonization of buildings. Our schools are some of our largest greenhouse gas emitters in our communities. I'll say that again. Our schools are some of the largest greenhouse gas emitters in our communities. So we would love, and students would love, for school districts to get some support to do some of this decarb work, because it is very expensive to retrofit and to decarb old school buildings. And also, a lot of these students are fighting for, if any new infrastructure is being added, that please let it be net zero. So that's another thing that some students are working on here in our school district. And now I will pass it over to Tessa.
Hi everybody, I'm Tessa Nims. I'm a senior down at Boulder High School, go Panthers. And I'm here today to talk about kind of what being a youth climate activist means to me, and then also what you guys can do as leaders in your communities to kind of support other youth climate activists that are just starting off into this movement like myself. So next slide. So I'm gonna be talking about kind of what I've learned so far as getting into this climate movement is that you can't do it alone, and you need connections along the way in order to make a difference. And so I'm going to specifically talk about connection to nature, connection to peers, and connection to community. For connection to nature, I think in order to get into the climate movement, you have to know exactly what it is you're fighting for. And I think anybody can be a climate activist, and it kind of just takes, in order for people to find the urgency to act and to make changes in their own habits, just like understanding like that it's more present and real when it's in your own backyard. And so I think the first step is to kind of just go outside and form a relationship with nature as yourself. And so when you're given the opportunity to fall in love with nature and to like understand the intrinsic value of nature, it's far more compelling to get involved and protect nature because it means so much to you, and you can better understand how healthy ecosystems can be used as tools to combat climate change. I think activities for youth as simple as hiking and outdoor field trips can be super impactful, because when kids are given the opportunity to see how special nature is and to see how happy it makes them, and also just to see how it supports the other plants and animals that they find really important to themselves, it is like way easier to plant that seed of motivation to make a difference. And so I think a determination to protect something that's important to you is the first step in becoming a climate activist. And so I'll say, next slide, please. A connection to peers is also important, because once that seed of motivation has been planted, it needs a supportive environment to kind of take root and grow. And so I think the climate crisis is not an easy thing to be living through. And I think my generation especially is going to be feeling these impacts of climate change far more greatly. And so I think it takes a network of collaborative and like-minded peers to kind of bolster the effect, their like climate conservation impacts and efforts. And so like it's a lot harder to feel isolated and afraid when you're surrounded by kids who also care about the natural world as much as you do, and like are just as excited about putting their unique interests and skills to use in fighting climate change. So I feel lucky to have met like my fellow panelists are also interested in this, and at my school I've made a club in which kids who are also passionate about this can come together and kind of make that difference. So next slide. Lastly, a connection to community is very important, because a connection to the land and a connection to others, but then also you require a connection to your community in order to make a bigger impact. And that's kind of like the flower of this kind of metaphor of growing climate activism. And so I think getting involved with your local government is really enlightening, because government can seem kind of untouchable and daunting. But when you get involved and meet the people behind the scenes, government is more personable and it can act as an ally in making the positive changes that you want to see. Also getting into your community too with like conservation projects and policy change and education can make a serious impact, because it's so visible and immediate in your own local community. And so I think that's really impressive. It's really rewarding to take charge of your own home where you live, and it's rewarding to see impacts on a local level. And so then I think finally, like, just getting out into the public and bringing your voice and your actions to where others can see can inspire other climate activists and kind of pave the way for them to plant their own seeds and like take root and grow. And so I inspire all of you today to go back to your communities and kind of think about ways in which you can help improve the connections for other youth and to help kind of build this youth force when we are facing the climate crisis right now. So thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mateo Bovino, and I'm a NOAA Young Changemaker through the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And today I'm going to run through building resilience and a little bit of some of the projects that I've led. Well, actually, you can stay on the last slide. Over the past 2 years, I've raised over $17,000 to create an outdoor green space in the front lawn of my high school. And I also, what else did I do? I converted over 250 solar panels with Sunflower Seeds Ukraine to send to schools across the war-torn country. And these projects were great, but I couldn't have done them without, so next slide, without this project implementation system that I created that starts with an idea. And that idea morphs into a detailed plan. And then you take that plan and you change, and you have to have funding and also permission for it to become action. So I use this plan, and that's how these projects were implemented. And of course, I couldn't have done it alone. And so next slide. People like Tiffany Boyd, who I've had just been super fortunate to connect with, and Peter Sumaitot, who's up in the corner there in the red shirt, and just the club that I lead at my school. They're just the driving force, the grunt work behind all these projects, and it's not possible without a community or people who support it as well. And so I think it's really, really important for these projects. But what exactly were the projects, right? So next slide. Well, this is the top of my school. It was the top of my school. It looked like this before, but next slide, we decided to change it into something like this. We planted trees and installed 5 picnic tables, and this year it is a space where kids hang out all the time, although now it's getting a little bit cold, but people eat lunch, people hang out under the trees, and for decades to come, they will fight drought, reduce heat, and thrive after I graduate. So that's really, really exciting. Next slide. Green spaces are really, really advantageous in many ways, and I think we already talked about planting trees is a classic nature-based climate solution, and so I think it's really important, similar to beavers, even though like beavers aren't exactly part of my presentation. I think that they're also part of nature, and I think that's why these nature-based climate solutions are so important and actually so effective. They have all of those incredible benefits and more that I didn't even put up on the slide. And of course, this project couldn't have been done without the project implementation system. So this year, next slide, my club and I are trying to apply this implementation system to my newest project called the Box to the Future. And it's basically a climate-based learning kit aimed to promote solution-oriented thinking in 8th grade students across the Colorado Front Range and potentially beyond the Colorado Front Range. It's a very, very scalable learning kit that I hope to really expand beyond Boulder Valley and beyond Colorado even at some point, and it's really exciting. It's just in its infancy, but it is funded by NOAA and NAAE, so it's really exciting, and I'm excited to see where it goes. If you want to follow along with it, we have an Instagram, and also you can check out our website. And like I said, although my presentation isn't about beavers, I hope you can take something out of the process that I've kind of created and come up with, and out of my journey, and bring it back and try to involve some youth, because we sometimes have a couple good ideas. So thank you so much. That's all from me.
I would love to check in to see how much time we have. Do we have time to take a couple questions from the audience?
Yeah, we got 5 minutes left.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions? Great. Is there a microphone runner, or what do we do? Yay. Thank you, Rachel. Raise your hand a little higher so Rachel can find you.
Thank you.
Do you guys want me to take that one? So just like Mateo was talking about with green schoolyards, there's a lot of work across the country working on reducing urban heat on school playgrounds and painting rooftops, removing asphalt, putting in pollinator gardens, native plants. Lots of these things are happening, so yeah, for sure. Did you have a question? Oh, great.
Hi, is this on? Okay, hi. My name's Lauren Romero. I come from Texas, Central Texas, Austin area, Hill Country. I'm starting a water podcast, and the purpose of the podcast is to engage all of the water constituencies so that they can educate each other via depth interviews, so like 30-minute interviews, something like that. As part of the idea is that they're very fragmented now, and we have some very, very serious water issues in Texas. And by their own account, they're fragmented. So we're trying to create a forum where they can get better educated about what each other are doing. And we want to engage also the community in this effort at transparency in the water movement. So as a part of that, we have some local schools that are already have won awards for their design in terms of water resilience. And we want to engage our local community via the schools because, as many of us know, during the child rearing years, people fall off the civic engagement train. They're just too busy. And so a great way to reach them is through their children. That brings me to my question to you. To what extent have your activities been successful at various grade levels in engaging parents in the community, and what are you doing to do that?
Yeah, I can answer that one because we've kind of, with this group, led a few climate resilience summits and planted trees, and that engaged not only the young people from the schools, but some of them can't drive, so their parents have to come. And then once they're there and they see the wonderful event and all the free food, they're like, oh, we'll stay. And so I think it is pretty successful in engaging parents. Of course, yeah, people are busy, so it's hard, and you'd have to be more intentional about it. I don't think in my projects I haven't been purely intentional on focusing on the parents because it's such a wide audience, and some of them, it's easier with the kids. Sometimes you know them and you can kind of, yeah, exactly. So working through the kids. Exactly, yeah, getting the kids to go bother their parents. So yeah, so I think it could be really effective, and I've seen it be effective. So.
We're going to have the kids on the show as the interstitial so that they have the motivation to come listen to the show.
That's really cool. Yeah, and in my own personal experience, I think my parents have been really excited by what I'm doing also.
I just want to make a quick note that part 2 of this session will be held at 11:10 in the Aspen room across the hall. So I hope some of you will go and continue this conversation. We did have one question on the app that I want to get to because, of course, we told people to comment in the app or ask questions in the app. So this is about peak to peak. Can you speak more to the myco-remediation work you're doing?
Yes, myco-remediation, I don't remember the exact definition of the word, but what it meant to us was the act of using mushrooms to help improve the soil in our planting area. And we kind of made that a mycelium experiment where we would have certain trees as controls with normal soil, and then some of them would have mycelium, and then some of them would have a different type of mycelium to see what type of soil would retain the water better. And it's still ongoing. I don't know if we have any specific results yet, but it seems like mycelium is a really good way to bring about better soil for the trees.
That's great. And of course, I personally want to thank you guys for saving the rest of us. And I think we'll wrap up now in its passing period. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And just like Rachel said, the third graders are going to be presenting on Coexistence with Beavers in the Aspen room right behind, starting in about 4 minutes. So if you want to file in there, and feel free to come up and ask these students any questions afterwards. Thanks so much.